Welcome to Straightforward Estate Planning with Pedrani Law.
Hey everybody, welcome back to an all-new episode of Straightforward Estate Planning with Pedrani Law. I'm your host, Mike Leon. Keith here is the founder of Pedrani Law, LLC, and he's an attorney licensed in the state of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. He's got a law and business background, and he's been helping families protect what they've built through thoughtful estate, probate, and Medicaid planning. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about cryptocurrency and how digital assets fit into an estate plan that actually works in the real world. So Keith, good to see you as always. I'm sure clients are asking you about cryptocurrency and how this fits into their estate plans. What kinds of digital assets are you helping them plan for?
Thanks for having me, and great to see you as well. Digital assets as an umbrella term can encompass more than cryptocurrency. It can be cryptocurrency, website, domain names, social media content, email addresses, things like that. So we're certainly helping everyone with planning for all of those in the digital age, but uh, without question, cryptocurrency has been the topic lately that I'm getting the most questions on. In particular, I mean, Bitcoin is definitely the dominant asset, but you're also seeing a lot of people with altcoins, which is broadly defined as really anything other than Bitcoin. Ethereum, Ripple is definitely having a moment right now. XRP, Cardano's been in the picture for quite a while. Bitcoin and now even meme coins and NFTs, non-fungible tokens. We're getting questions about all of it, and it's very interesting because it feels like it's been a lot longer than it actually has with crypto. We're really still kind of in the infancy of everything. Uh, Passing it down, it can still create some challenges.
Yeah. A lot of words there. None of them I understand of. But I want to ask you, because I'm sure you're getting a lot of these questions about some of these assets. And what makes, let's just take crypto, for example, what makes it different from traditional investments when it comes to passing it on? Or does it make it easy?
It's kind of a mix. So with a traditional stock portfolio, you would have an account with, let's say, personally, I use Charles Schwab. So let's just use that as an example. So I have X amount in a Schwab account that's invested in all public companies. On the account, I can designate a beneficiary. And when I pass away, it's really a pretty clean process. My heirs, my executor in particular, would get in touch with Schwab. They would figure out who the beneficiaries were. There's quite a process while they try to hang on to your money and make a few more bucks off of it before they release it. But eventually, it will get to your beneficiaries, uh, and really what you need is the death certificate. Uh, you're of course going to have to send in documents proving you're the executor and everything like that. But it goes by your social security number. There's no real way to, lose a password and lose access to the stocks that are held on Schwab or Fidelity or anything similar like that. There's institutional control of those assets, the stocks. The entire point of cryptocurrency, broadly speaking, is that there is no centralization. So there is no institution, there is no bank that's holding all of this cryptocurrency, so to speak. Uh, y- you know, so if you do lose the private keys that you have, or you don't pass the private keys down, the assets can actually be lost because there's no forgot password, there's no institution to go to recover. You either have the private keys and you know where the assets are stored, or you don't have the private keys. So it can make it more challenging in the sense that there's not a third party that can step in and help your heirs get access to it. However, that could also be viewed as making it easier because there's no third party necessary. So really all your heirs need is the access plan and your private keys. So it can go both ways, but the onus on keeping the information and facilitating that pass down shifts, the burden is more on you. It's actually really exclusively on you and any professionals like myself that you might employ to help you, but uh, it's on you. There's not an institution backup, so to speak, to help you get them.
So why don't you walk us through how you help a client document their crypto holdings safely, and what kind of information belongs in this plan?
So you want to make sure that you have an inventory, number one. So, an attorney that I follow on the subject, who's been doing a lot of work in the space, has written a few books and articles, is Pamela Morgan. I recommend going to her website, Empowered Law, and she has a lot of resources, like actually PDFs that you could fill out with inventories and things like that. I've learned a lot from her. So, what you want to do is make sure that you have, at least in rough amounts, the holdings that you have and where you have those holdings. So, let's just keep it simple and say someone has Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Ripple. Let's say the Bitcoin is stored on a cold wallet. You want to list where that cold wallet is and how to access it. If the Ethereum and the XRP are on an exchange like a Coinbase or a Binance, then you could list, access credentials, but you really don't want to keep uh, too many of your assets on an exchange that's connected to the internet. You really want the security of a cold wallet. So it's inventorying, and then it's coming up with an access plan for the keys. So, one of the challenges is you don't really want to give anybody your private keys while you're still alive, because as I'll use an overused saying, but it's very true. The saying is, if it's not your keys, not your crypto. And basically what that means is anybody who has access to your private keys can access your crypto. So you really can't give all the information to somebody at once, and that's what becomes the challenge. But in terms of coming up with a plan, it's inventory, it's having a backup for the keys, and then it's the plan for how that information is then given um, to the heirs at the right time. So that's where someone like myself can come in. We can help with sealed letters, we can deliver information at the right time, but there's still a hesitancy, for people with crypto holdings to even trust professionals like myself with the private keys, just because of how easily they could be misappropriated, and the fear of loss. So you really have to balance, the key balance is between security and actual accessibility, because you don't want to come up with a plan that's so convoluted and so secure that your heirs can't navigate it. But you also don't want to enable people to have access to your assets right away, because you might trust them today. Circumstances can change, things can happen. Uh, so, and I realize I'm answering a lot of general questions. So, to answer your specific question, we would first create an inventory, and then we would create an access plan. We would decide where the keys are going to be memorialized, how that's going to happen, and then how that information is going to be conveyed. So, to get specific, you would have the inventory, you would have the will would reference an access letter, but not have any of the private keys or any of the other information that you want to keep private in the will, because of course that becomes uh, that that will become public record at some point. So you can't really have any details in that. So your will would reference a letter of instruction essentially for your digital assets. That would be a separate document. That would be a sealed document. And then hopefully you've educated your heirs, or you've designated someone like myself or another professional to help educate your heirs so they can actually navigate your system and get to your crypto.
No, it's good information, and you knocked out a bunch of the follow-ups. But I did want to ask you if you could share maybe a quick story or example of how clear instructions made a difference for one of your clients, or on the opposite side, when maybe missing keys caused a problem for the families?
Rather than a specific example, I'll give you a hypothetical. So if you pass, let's say you have Bitcoin in a, let's just call it Bitcoin or whatever your asset mix is. Let's say you have that on a cold wallet, uh, but you don't back up the keys, or you have backed up the keys, but you've put the keys in a location that only you know, which it sounds secure, it sounds great. Something happens to you suddenly and nobody knows where the wallet is, or if they know where the wallet is, they don't know where the keys are. That cryptocurrency, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Cardano, whatever it is, whatever's on that cold wallet is now lost completely. Nobody can access it. Nobody even really knows about it. So the other scenario I'll paint you is you've had a conversation with your heirs. They know that you hold digital assets. You've at least given them a cursory overview of what a cold wallet is. You've told them where you have the cold wallet. Let's say it's a safety deposit box. You tell them that you've filled out an inventory, that you have, X amount on cold wallet A, X amount of on cold wallet B. I have some coins that are still on Binance. Here's the Binance account. On Coinbase, here's the Coinbase account. All of this information is stored in an area where you can only access it after I pass away. But they have the conversation with the heirs that you are going to be the one to receive the digital assets, or at least receive them for distribution. You see an estate planning attorney like myself. You develop either a revocable trust and a pour over will, or just a will that clearly designates who gets those assets after you pass away. So the combination action of you informing your heir of where the hardware is and where the coins are on the exchanges, plus the traditional estate planning to make sure that they're accounted for and to make sure that we've provided access in those documents, that ensures a smooth transition uh, from you to your heirs after you pass away. So, and those are, two extreme examples. There's, with absolutely no planning versus, uh, you know, planning it pretty extensively. Most of the time it ends up in the middle where there's some awareness that there's assets. Maybe there's some planning, maybe the planning's out of date, maybe the inventory is out of date. Uh, and, the keys may or may not be backed up. But, uh, the real key is to make sure that everything is done in a way that's actually navigable by your heirs, and that you've prepared your heirs to do so, and that you've seen someone like me, so we have it actually planned out according to your wishes, who is getting what.
Keith, let me ask you, in the state of New York and New Jersey, if you can drill into what kind of legal language do you include in these wills or power of attorneys, so the fiduciaries are actually authorized to access these digital assets?
So you have provisions that allow for, like, let's say, an adorable power of attorney. So in the event of incapacity, if you want individuals, your agents in that scenario, to have access to your digital assets, then you have to specifically include that language. Or alternatively, if you do not want them to have that authority, you need to specifically restrict it. Uh, Within the last will and testament and the trust, you can give the same authority, but it's slightly different because of the differences that we've discussed, and you know how these are stored. But I also want to make clear the way that the assets themselves are viewed. They're not viewed as currency. They're actually viewed as property as far as the government is concerned. And the reason that that's significant is because, like other property, the cryptocurrency receives a step up basis to the fair market value at the time of your death. So uh, that is very important for your heirs and for you to understand in your planning. Uh, because it can eliminate, I mean, especially in the case of Bitcoin or other currencies that really have appreciated uh, significantly in value, it eliminates a lot of capital gains tax.
Yeah. Keith, I was just about to ask you about that because crypto prices, they swing wildly, everyone knows.
Sure.
How do you advise somebody who's an executor now, they've inherited these digital assets, on whether or not they should hold them, sell them, convert them?
Sure. So that, and if you're the one planning to transition the cryptocurrency and leave it for your heirs, if you have a specific vision for what you want your heirs to do with it or not do with it, it's very important that you memorialize that in the document. So many people who hold Bitcoin will never sell it. So that, it is certainly can be a speculative asset. For some, there are people that trade Bitcoin. I'm not saying there aren't, but there's an entire other subset of Bitcoin holders that never plan to sell their Bitcoin, that will borrow against it. Um, Really anything to avoid actually selling it. So if you're someone who believes in that, uh, you want to express that to your heirs and make it clear that you don't want your Bitcoin sold, that you actually want your heirs to have the Bitcoin. But in the absence of clear instructions from the person passing down the cryptocurrency, I would say it's like anything else. You really have to weigh uh, the pros and cons of selling versus holding uh, if there's not clear instructions. So the volatility makes it a very the decision making factors can change quite rapidly.
Mm.
Uh, so you really have to be, uh, as always, you would always have to be transparent with other heirs and anyone else who's entitled to benefit under the estate planning. If I'm putting myself in the shoes of the trustee or the executor, uh,
Right.
so you it would really depend heavily on circumstance. And again, this is assuming that there's no clear instruction from the person who left the cryptocurrency behind.
Mm.
Uh, Ultimately, it's going to be a case by case determination on what's feasible. Does the estate need liquidity to pay debts or other taxes and that, or creditors? There may not be a choice but to at least partially liquidate some to satisfy debts, to satisfy creditor claims. uh, but in the scenario where they've inherited it and it's just a discretionary decision, then that would really fall on the executor or the trustee to decide, absent clear instructions.
Keith, as we wrap here, what's one simple first step for somebody right now who owns crypto, but they haven't addressed it in their plans? What's one simple first step you would advise them to take this week so they make sure those assets aren't lost or forgotten?
Start your inventory. So if you're anything like most, I'll just speak for myself personally. I have assets on a cold wallet and I have assets on 3 exchanges. So, small amounts on the exchanges, but Coinbase, Binance, and KuCoin. So, if I didn't have an inventory, I would create an inventory just to map out where everything is. And if possible, start talking to the person, whether that's your spouse, um, your adult children, whoever you're thinking of. Maybe it's a close friend or a sibling. Start the conversation with the person who you're hoping will be able to help facilitate the pass down of your crypto assets. And if they aren't educated on the subject, start to educate them, or you might want to research other options if you don't feel that anyone in your immediate circle is going to be able to handle that part of your estate planning. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not for everybody. Uh, and just because you have a good relationship with someone doesn't mean they're going to be well suited to help you in this particular area. And there are professionals available to help you.
Yeah. Keith, thank you for the time and insights on this. Truly appreciate it as always.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And thank you to everybody out there for listening to today's episode of Straightforward Estate Planning with Pedrani Law. If you want to learn more about Keith's work or schedule a consultation with Keith and the team, visit pedranilaw.com today. You'll find clear guidance on estate planning, probate, and Medicaid planning for families across New York and New Jersey, as well as information on cryptocurrency. As always, I'm Mike Leon. Thank you out there for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.